Well, and we still got people joining the chat room, so I'm going to shout you out, but I'm going to wait until the end of the show to make sure that I do it right, because I like to go through my roll call at the end, because I give everybody, a little flack sometime, or I give them a special name or something like that. So we'll do that at the end. But let's move on. And over the weekend, and I obviously on Saturday I did the show and I was talking about the combine, but combine is over. So, pro days will be coming. So some of these kids, that didn't throw like Sam Darnold, they'll be throwing, at their pro days and all that stuff. So we got, a little bit more stuff going on right before the NFL draft goes down, but had a lot of highlights, a lot of good things. Some bad things happened, for some people didn't perform like they wanted to, overall. We talked about Orlando Brown struggling, but, you had guys like Shaquem Griffin, with the missing the one hand, and he did well. You had, who else did you have that was there that did well? Gesicki, tight end for Penn State, and other guys on it. But there's one guy that, I think lived up to the hype and maybe went beyond the hype, and that was Saquon Barkley, former Penn State running back. And it just leads to the question, could Saquon go number one overall for what he did? I mean, he showed out in the 40. He showed that he has the speed. We've seen the game tape. I've seen the game tape of how he did my Michigan Wolverines. Let me tell you something. When I watched that game, the only thing I saw of Saquon Barkley was the back of his helmet. And I was watching from the TV. So we know he got the breakaway speed. He got all the moves as far as like cutting left, right on a dime. He can catch out of the backfield. He jumps high. He does all this stuff. He says all the right things. So, but he's a running back. And the whole thing about running backs is that they have a certain shelf life. And do you really want to invest a high pick on Saquon Barkley? He's been rumored to go, anywhere at number 2 to the Giants. They have him at number 4 to the Browns, as long as, the draft stay in the same order. If he was to fall, granted, I don't think he would fall that far, but if he still stayed in the top 10 and somehow, some way, he fell to number 9, where the San Francisco 49ers are drafting, I can't even imagine. Kyle Shanahan probably would be doing the Tootsie Roll if that guy fell to him. And even if he's not there, 10. I mean, Raiders wouldn't even be thinking, and I said Galloway is in here in the chat room, I don't even think the Raiders would be thinking about Marshawn Lynch at that point. They would probably be like, bye Marshawn, hello Saquon Barkley. But can Saquon Barkley actually be the number 1 overall draft pick? That is very rare in itself. You had Ezekiel Elliott, he went 4, and you have some other guys that went, in the past. But I think it could be possible. And the only real reason I say that is because the Cleveland Browns are drafting. And they have a ton of draft picks. And you have to think, if they really want Saquon Barkley, and they're really trying to make sure they are trying to maximize these draft picks. Unless the quarterback position, because look, the Browns have passed on a quarterback, the past 3 years, 2-3 years at this point, and they even passed on Johnny Manziel, because they drafted Justin Gilbert before him, and then they took Johnny Manziel. So it did not work out, but you got Josh Allen, Josh Rosen, Sam Darnold, and I don't know if they would take a chance in the first round on somebody like Lamar Jackson. I think, they might wait, but you got to think, those 3 guys, you pick 1 and 4, you take Saquon, because I don't think he gets past the Giants. I think the Giants really would roll the dice, even though they need more help somewhere else. I think they would be like, look, we can't pass this, opportunity up. I think they would take him number 1 overall. It's not going to be that much of a difference in the pay, from 1 to 4, at that point. and then still get their quarterback. Because they're probably going to be looking at all three of the guys. Like I said, Sam Darnold, Josh Rosen, and Josh Allen. They're going to be looking at all those guys. You still got Baker Mayfield out there. They may even, roll with Baker Mayfield and take him a little bit later. So I do think Saquon could go number one overall if the Browns keep that pick. And that's mainly because the Browns have so many picks, they can afford to take that chance on Saquon Barkley and see if it works out, at this point. So, and as we go through the show, for the people that's new to the show, I go through the chat room. So if they're commenting on anything that I'm talking about, I make them part of the show. That's how I like to do it. And Clutch Talk Sports, my man Kevin Gray is out there. He said, he's talking about Saquon Barkley. He needs to chill out, though, with hanging and working out with Johnny Manziel. He doesn't get past 4 in the draft. So, maybe, you know what, Clutch? And here's what I'll say, Kevin. I'm hoping what this is that Saquon is being a positive influence on Johnny. That's what I'm really hoping it is. That Johnny Manziel is surrounding himself with people that are actually doing it right. I know I'm getting off the topic, but this is how the show goes. Clutch bring up something, I'm going to talk about it. So I really think that Johnny has somewhat figured it out. We'll know in due time if he has, but I think that's a good thing that he's hanging with Saquon. I think Saquon is his mind is strong enough to know I'm not going down that route. Already seen how everything worked out for you, Johnny. So I definitely not. Now, when Johnny was hanging with Josh Gordon and both of them, had their problems. Yeah, it's just like you're picking the wrong people. You're picking people, who just want to be around you. You're picking people that's never going to tell you no. You got a bunch of yes people around you. Now I think he has some people around him that's going to tell him to sit your butt down or tell him to shut up or whatever, tell him what he needs to hear. So but Saquon still do need to be careful. Kevin is right on that. It's just, you never know. You never know what he could, revert back to. Seth Galloway said if he falls that far to 10, it changes what the Raiders would do. Absolutely, it changes what the Raiders would do. They are not thinking about Marshawn Lynch at that point. I mean, they want Marshawn there, but you got to believe that they will probably say, Marshawn, this is your last year, because Marshawn's not going to another team. He came back to play, for the Raiders. But that will be a nice combination of Saquon and Marshawn Lynch in the backfield, maybe at the same time, or changing it up. We've seen how it worked out in New Orleans with Kamara and Ingram. So it could be something deadly. Yeah, I don't think he gets to 10, but if just somehow, some way he does fall that far, yeah, he's going to change a lot of people draft strategy that's going on in the rookie draft. But I think he could go number 1. He could go number 1. If someone else moves up to be number 1, they're taking a quarterback. I think the Giants will stay packed where they're at. I don't think, anybody else would really make too many moves. But Cleveland, they can afford to do this. They can afford to take a chance on this guy. They got tons of draft picks. They just got to get them right. That's the thing. You have to get them. When you have that many draft picks, you got to get some of them right or majority of them right. Versus if you only got one every round, then it's like you really have to get it right. There's more pressure. But they could play around a little bit, and get some guys. So I still think they could get their quarterback and they could get their running back and they could get some other pieces that they need to fill their team. We've seen other teams, and we're going to talk about like Seattle. They did it through the draft, and they did not do it picking up first rounders, every year. So, and we'll get into Seattle a little bit later because I want to talk about them. But yeah, I think he could be, number 1 overall. And speaking of the draft, since we're talking about the draft, I'm getting a little ahead of myself, but we're going to jump to 2019 NFL draft. And I know you're thinking like, why is Jelani jumping to 2019 and we ain't even finished up 2018 yet for the draft? Indeed. Lopan, nobody is asking you. Okay? Just roll with me on this, Lopan, okay? Indeed. All right. Stop playing around with me, man. Roll with me on this. So the reason I bring up 2019 is that For people who do not know this guy, you probably need to find out about him. But Ed Oliver, who is the University of Houston D lineman, he has already had plans, and it is not official yet, but he's already had plans to enter the 2019 draft. He's talking about it, about getting into it. That's what the report is out there, is that, I guess he's kind of just telling, look, I ain't coming back for my senior year. I'll probably be gone right now if this whole 3-year, deal wasn't in effect. And the reason why I say he probably will be gone, because there's always, at some point an exception that they make, to the rules, or not an exception, but someone is always an exception to the rule. But because there is a rule, then you got to play by the rules. And this guy, Ed Oliver, man, he is a grown man. Already. He was a grown man coming into college. It's just some guys, they just develop, different than others. And if he was in the draft this year, he'd probably be somewhere in the top 10 as far as like D linemen that they would be taking. So he already know his stock. He already know, pretty much like Jadeveon Clowney. He already know his stock. He know everyone's waiting for him. So he already, is talking about, I'll be there. I'm on my way. Just wait. Let me finish up this year and I'll be in the mix. Now, is that a good thing? Is that, maybe the wisest thing to just go ahead and tell everyone that, I'm going to the 2019 draft and that's, it is what it is. Now, the guy is, unless he is one of the most fugaziest, players in the world, which by all accounts he's not. They're saying he's the real deal. He can probably do this and pull it off as well. Now you got one side though, it's just like, okay, yeah, go ahead, get it out the way. So then nobody's talking about it through the season, or when you start getting near the end of the season where you get into a bowl game or anything. Well, people talk about it, a bowl game, like, are you going to play in a bowl game or not, at that point. But maybe this is, a time for him to just go ahead and get everything off his back, and just say, we don't have to talk about it anymore. We can dead all that. And when the season is over, then we can talk about, the draft and where I'm going to fall in that and the combine. Now, the other thing about that, the flip side, does he add unneeded pressure? Because the whole thing with Jadeveon Clowney was, everyone was questioning, was he motivated? Was he really just, going through the motions, because he didn't have as of a dominant season the previous year and his sophomore year going into his junior year. So you got all those things. And then people are like, is he thinking about the money? Is he too much, worried about his stock? Is people in his ear, and then that pressure builds up, on you. And maybe that affects your play, or maybe that, gets on your nerve or somehow. So maybe, it's not wise, to bring it up. Me personally, if you're asking my opinion, this guy, Jelani, if you're asking my opinion, I would just be mums. I'd be like, look, 2019 is not here. So until 2019 get here, and then at that point, the season's almost over. You're playing like a bowl game, as long as you qualify. I'll be like, hey, I'll talk about it in 2019. But until right now, there's nothing to be talked about because 2019 is not here. I can't do anything until 2019. And that's exactly how I'll put it, to him. I cannot do anything until 2019. So there's no real reason to talk about it. But I do get why he is being brought up. Get it out the way and be done with it. I just think I will go, a different route. And this guy, people were talking about like, how surprised they were that he did end up going to the University of Houston because normally a talent such as himself, he's 6'3", 290, and just pure strength and agility and athleticism. Normally that type of talent is going to be going to a Power Five, conference.